Hi, AP Human Geography scholars. I'm Dr. Sawyer, and I created the GOATcard system. Get it? The greatest of all time note cards. I created this system because I am so passionate about your learning in AP Human Geography. In fact, I have taught AP Human Geography in 2 different high schools. I, in fact, started AP Human Geography in both of the high schools. I am also the author of the globally read Crash Course in AP Human Geography, published by REA. My GOATcard system is based on my almost 10 years of teaching this course and years of researching the AP Human Geography curriculum and the AP Human Geography exam. Let me share with you how my GOATcard system works. Each of my GOATcards includes what I believe are the most essential concepts, skills, and information related to the newest and most updated AP Human Geography curriculum as of publication. My GOATcards, I believe, are highly organized and include practice questions and skills that are similar to the types of questions you will see on the AP Human Geography exam. As your experienced teacher, I will review and explain all of the information on each of the GOATcards and really lead you through your learning so you can master the information that I am teaching you. And on the right-hand side here in the pink boxes, you'll notice that each of the GOATcards, as I mentioned, have practice questions similar to types of questions and skills applications that you will find on the AP Human Geography exam, as well as interesting geofacts related to the unit. You can go to my website, thegoatcard.com, where you can find GOATcard unit review videos that I will be releasing up until the AP Human Geography exam in May, based on popular demand. So let me know if you're interested. I also will be offering weekly live review sessions that you can sign up, where I will be going through the AP Human Geography units and teaching you what I believe are essential concepts and skills and information related to each of the units and to help you do your best on the AP Human Geography exam. You can also enroll in my weekend review academies that I will be hosting, where I will be doing a deep dive for many hours each weekend into the AP Human Geography units, what I believe are the key concepts, skills, and information related to the curriculum, and to help you do your very best on the AP Human Geography exam. All right, AP Human Geography scholars, it is now time to jump in to our AP Human Geography GOATcard review unit on population and migration patterns and processes. Let's start with our first GOATcard. On this first GOATcard, I'm going to review with you a key concept: population distribution and density. As I go through the GOATcard, I encourage you to be writing down all of the information. Pause the video at any time or rewind if you need to hear it again for your notes. Remember, you can be using my study tool found on my website, thegoatcard.com, to be writing down your notes as you go through my videos. Geographers are interested in the distribution or pattern of where people live. Density is the calculation geographers use to study population distribution across scales of inquiry. Let's talk about that term, scales of inquiry, too. That means how zoomed in we are in studying a particular geographic phenomenon. In this case, we're talking about density. And scales of inquiry can be local, national, regional, or global. So, for example, if we were at a local scale of inquiry, we would be studying the data in a particular neighborhood or town. If we were studying a particular geographic phenomenon at the national scale of inquiry, we would be studying all of the data for a particular country. If we were studying a particular geographic phenomenon at a regional scale of inquiry, we would be looking, for example, at an entire region of places, such as all of North America. If we were studying a particular geographic phenomenon at a global scale of inquiry, we would be studying all of the data from across the world. Geographers describe population distribution in many ways, such as being dispersed or spread out, or concentrated and clustered, which means more clumped together. Earth's human population is unevenly distributed. Asia has the highest concentration of people, whereas Australia has a low concentration of Earth's population. Population distribution can be influenced by physical, economic, political, cultural, and historical factors. Let me share some examples with you. If you study Europe's historical population distribution, you will notice clustering around the coal deposits from the Atlantic Ocean to the Ural Mountains, as these natural resources fueled the 19th century Industrial Revolution. Jerusalem has a high population density, in part because of the religious significance of the region. All right, let's turn our attention to our first skills application in this pink box. I want you to listen to the question and then pause the video, write down your answer in your own notebook or the study tool that I've made, and then restart the video to hear my thinking on this question. All right, here's the question, AP Human Geography scholars. Compare the population distributions represented in space A and space B. All right, AP Human Geography scholars, let me share with you my thinking on this skills application question. Here's what I wrote. The population distribution in space A appears to be more dispersed than the population distribution in space B, which appears to be more concentrated or clustered. Okay, it's time for our second GOAT card, methods of calculating population density. Geographers have multiple ways of calculating population density in a place, and each of these ways lends insight into a population spread. First, there is what's called the arithmetic population density, and that's just the total number of people in an area divided by the total land. Physiological population density is the total number of people in an area divided by the total amount of farmable land in that area. So notice the difference. Arithmetic is just the total number of people divided by total land, whereas physiological population density is the total number of people divided by the farmable or arable, which means farmable, land in that space. Physiological population density sheds light on the amount of pressure a population is putting on farmable land. Agricultural population density is the number of farmers divided by the total farmable land. This calculation gives us a clue into how intensive the farming practices are in the area. So the higher the agricultural population density, the greater the number of farmers per unit area of farmable land. A higher agricultural population density indicates many farmers are farming each unit of farmland. A low agricultural density gives us a clue that few farmers exist on each unit area of farmland. And this is perhaps a clue into farming technology. So if we look at the amount of farm output and we see that there is a low agricultural density and a high amount of output, that indicates that the farming practices in that area are probably technologically advanced if there are few farmers per unit area of farmland, but a lot of farm output. All right, geography scholars, it's time for a skills application. Remember, after I read the question, pause the video, write down your own ideas and responses, and then hit play again to hear my thinking on this question. Here it is. The U.S. agricultural density is 1 farmer per square kilometer of arable land, whereas Egypt's agricultural density is 826 farmers per square kilometer of arable land. Explain what the differences in the agricultural densities of the U.S. and Egypt potentially indicate about the farming practices in the two countries. All right, human geography scholars, let me share with you my response to this question. Egypt's significantly higher agricultural population density indicates that more farmers are farming each square kilometer of arable land in Egypt, compared with a much smaller number of farmers per square kilometer of farmland in the United States. But this higher agricultural density in Egypt gives us a clue that Egyptian farming practices are more intensive than in the United States. This likely indicates that Egyptian farming practices also use higher amounts of labor and inputs per square mile of farmland. Conversely, the lower agricultural density in the United States suggests farming practices produce less farm output per square kilometer of arable land, use less labor and inputs, and are more mechanized, or using farming technology rather than human farmers. The next GOAT card focuses on consequences of population distribution. Carrying capacity is the number of people that an area can support. Places with higher population densities require higher carrying capacities. Carrying capacity reflects infrastructure, where the combination of support systems like water, roads, police, hospitals, education, and food. Improvements in infrastructure increase carrying capacity. Think of it this way: when regions invest in better roads, better education, better food supplies, better water supplies, that allows more people to live in the region. Overpopulation is when the carrying capacity is lower than the population, or put in other words, when the population exceeds the carrying capacity or is larger than the carrying capacity of the area. Population density impacts cultural, political, and economic landscapes. Let me give some examples. Think of it like this. Culturally, aspects like architecture are impacted. Higher density gradient areas often have architecture that makes use of smaller spaces very efficiently. You can also find music in those areas that reflect high population density. You might hear in songs references to crowded spaces or to city life with lots of people in those areas. Economically, areas of lower density often have more jobs involving larger amounts of land, like farming, whereas higher density areas often have more service-related jobs. Why? Because you would rarely find farmland in the middle of a city where land is super expensive. Politically, in democracies or elected governments, areas of higher density often get more attention from politicians. Why? Because in many cases, politicians are going where they can get the most votes. All right, let's turn our attention to the pink box here, and we have for you a GeoGoat fact this time. Countries can increase their carrying capacity by focusing on developing an economic trade for goods they need for their people. For example, South Korea developed their technology sector to trade for more goods their growing urban population needed. Our next GOAT card focuses on natural increase and population change. And the first term I want to review is rate of natural increase, abbreviated RNI or NIR for natural increase rate. This is the growth rate of a population resulting from births and deaths. In fact, you can take the crude birth rate, which is the birth rate per 1,000 people, minus the crude death rate, or the death rate per 1,000 people in an area, to get the rate of natural increase. Note that immigration is not factored into the rate of natural increase. This is simply looking at the population already in an area, not factoring in people coming into and out of due to migration. We'll look at immigration in a little bit. A positive rate of natural increase indicates an expanding population. In other words, the crude birth rate is higher than the death rate. A negative rate of natural increase indicates a decreasing population. So think of it, babies being born and people dying. And when those rates are equal, you have zero population growth. The growth rate is zero. We can say that the population is at equilibrium. The next term I want to teach you is total fertility rate, the number of children each woman is likely to have. When the total fertility rate, or the number of children each woman is likely to have, is 2, that is known as replacement level fertility. And here's why. When 2 people conceive of having 2 children, think of it this way. The 2 adults who conceived of the 2 children will eventually die, but their 2 children will replace them. So the population is not growing in size, it's remaining at equilibrium. When the total fertility rate is greater than 2, that is when the population is expanding. So think of it this way. 2 individuals conceive of 3 children. Eventually, these 2 individuals who conceived of the 3 children pass away, and their 3 children replace them. Notice that leaves 3 replacing 2, expanding. The inverse is true when the total fertility rate is less than 2. That means the population is reducing in size. Doubling time is how much time it will take for the population to double in size. As the rate of natural increase goes down, doubling time increases. So think of it this way. When the population growth rate gets lower, it's obviously then going to take more time for the population to double in size. But when the rate of natural increase gets much faster and people are having more babies more quickly, think of it this way, then the doubling time, or the amount of time that it takes to double the population, is going to be smaller. What causes changes in population natural growth rates? Let's look at some factors. First, let's talk about economic factors. We can see that in subsistence economies, or where people are growing food just to survive with themselves and their families, that they're probably going to have more children than in places that have service-based economies, that have, for example, more urban lifestyles or living in cities. So let's think about the difference. In subsistence economies, like I said, people are probably going to need to have more children, because oftentimes more children can grow up to help out on the farm and can help the family grow in their subsistence and in their survival. Whereas in service-based economies, oftentimes more children indicate or create more expenses for the family, as the family oftentimes lives in cities and they have to send their children to daycare. That's the way I like to think of it. So economically, oftentimes you see a higher total fertility rate in subsistence economies and a lower total fertility rate in service-based economies. But there are other reasons for this, and let's explore those. Think about healthcare and how healthcare influences these patterns. For example, in places that are subsistence economic landscapes where people are farming just to survive, oftentimes people do not have access to excellent healthcare or even good healthcare. When that's the case, oftentimes people do not get to live as long. Their life expectancies are lower. And so people often have more children because they anticipate many of those children, or a larger percentage than in service-based economies, will not survive to old age. You'll often see higher total fertility rates in areas with lower life expectancies. Similarly, you will also see higher infant mortality rates in those regions. Why? Because oftentimes people do not have access to good health care for their infants. And so more of the infants will not survive past 1 year of age. Conversely, or in an opposite way, in service-based economies, or places that have or had the privileges to develop more advanced healthcare, you will often see lower infant mortality rates as people have more access to healthcare to care for their infants, so their infants often live past 1 year of age. They also will have more access to healthcare to be able to live longer, so you'll see higher life expectancies in those areas. Importantly, let's talk about women's healthcare. In places with lower total fertility rates, you often see better healthcare access for women, because this is all tied together. Economic development leads to better healthcare, which leads to better healthcare for women, which often leads to lower infant mortality rates and often higher life expectancies for women. Also in this situation, women often have more economic opportunities to be able to get education at a higher level and pursue jobs beyond household jobs. And so these factors come together to influence the total fertility rate. The next factor I want to talk about are cultural beliefs about family size. So oftentimes, how many children we have is a reflection of what we've learned from our ancestors, from our grandparents and our great-grandparents. We learn family traditions in family size. And so some families have a tradition to have 5, 6, and 7 children, whereas other families have a cultural tradition of having 2 or even just 1. It really depends on your family and your culture. Also, cultural aspects like television, radio shows, Podcasts that represent families can also influence our thinking about family size. Oftentimes we'll see, for example, television shows that show a family having 2 children versus having 10 children as the norm. So think about how cultural influences also shape our thinking about how many children to have. Education, literacy rates, and women's rights and opportunities, as I have discussed a bit before. Greater access to education for all people often leads to higher literacy rates or the ability to read and write. Higher levels of education and literacy lead to more economic opportunities outside of the household. Also, this is directly related to urbanization and the development of more advanced service-based economies. And this leads to oftentimes lower total fertility rates as people live in cities oftentimes, and often children are expensive in cities, and people are expected to live longer in these societies because of better access to healthcare, which then influences the total fertility rate to be lower. And again, we want to think about women's rights and opportunities in these situations. Research shows that improved rights for women and improved education for women leads to better economic development and also lowering the total fertility rate and population growth. Government policies also play a role in population growth rates. Pronatalist or expansive population policies encourage people to have more children. So tax breaks, for example, for families that have more children would be considered pronatalist or expansive because it's encouraging people to have more children. Antinatalist policies or restrictive population policies are those that try and reduce the number of children that people are having. One of the most known is the Chinese one-child policy that once existed in China. China has now since changed its government policy to encourage more children than the one-child policy did at one time. Immigration policies don't impact the natural growth rate directly, but they do impact population size. Let's talk about how. So imagine a country that has a very high and rapid population growth rate. That country might consider restricting immigration because there are so many people being born that they do not want their population size to be greater than their carrying capacity. Inversely, consider a country that is having a slowdown or reduction in its population growth rate, and it realizes it will not have enough workers to fill all the jobs eventually. That country might consider increasing its immigration or changing its policies to welcome more immigrants into the country to fill jobs that will not be filled because of the lower population growth rate. Okay, let me move out of your way and let's read a GeoGoat fact. Let's talk about hidden population growth. This is an interesting term. This can occur when the crude birth rate and the crude death rate are thought to be equal, assumingly at zero population growth. However, if life expectancy is increasing in that area, people may live longer than expected. This would cause the death rate to be lower than the birth rate, leading to population expansion. That's called hidden population growth. All right, let's talk about our next GeoCard, population composition or population makeup. This is one of my favorite topics in this unit. Age-sex structures, or population pyramids, show the distribution of people's ages, or cohorts, which are age ranges, and genders in a given population. The dependency ratio is the percentage of dependents in a population compared to working age people. Now let's talk about this, because percentage of dependents in a population includes people 65 and older who are not considered working, and people too young to work in the particular region. So dependency ratio includes, if you just look at the overall dependency ratio, the elderly and the young who cannot work, who are dependent on the working age population, that age range in the workforce. So we've just talked about the overall dependency ratio, We can get even more specific. The old age dependency ratio involves the people who are in the cohorts or age ranges 65 and above compared to the working age population. The youth dependency ratio is the opposite. It is the people in the youth or too young to work cohorts compared to the working age population. And let's look at these two population pyramids together. Here we have a population pyramid that is actually Germany's. And on the right-hand side, you have the population pyramid of the Philippines. Let's talk about what we learn just by looking at these age-sex structures or population pyramids. First, you'll notice that the male population composition is represented on the left and the female is represented on the right. And you also notice different colors for male and female to help you visually organize that. You'll also notice these bars. Each of these bars, each of them represent an age cohort. So this right here is the age cohort 50 to 54 of men or male, and this is the 50 to 54 cohort of females in the population of Germany. Now you'll notice these percentages. These percentages indicate, in this case, the percentage of males in Germany age 50 to 54. So the percentage of males in the 50 to 54 age cohort is 4.1% in Germany. And the percentage of females in the cohort 50 to 54 is also 4.1%. So you could add those together and say 8.2% of Germany's population is in the age cohort 50 to 54. Let's do another one. Let's come over to the Philippines and look at this. So let's find the population composition. Let's specifically look at the cohort 20 to 29. And you'll notice that 4.4% of Philippines population are men in the age cohort 25 to 29, and 4.3% of the Philippines population composition are females in the age range 25 to 29. Again, we could add these two together and get 8.7, yep, that's right, 8.7% of the Philippines population is between the ages of 25 to 29. And if you notice, if you add all of these percentages up, you'll get 100% of the population. You'll also notice, GeoScholars, the interesting difference between the way Germany's age-sex structure looks and the way the Philippines' age-sex structure looks. Let's talk about what that could mean. And in fact, I'm going to challenge you to that in this next skills application question. Describe the population composition in Germany and in the Philippines. That keyword describe, simply what do you see? Adding in lots of the details of what you see in the population composition in Germany, which is here on the left, and the Philippines on the right. And I'll move out of the way in a minute so you can see them. Remember, when you're describing, you're not explaining, you're not telling why, but you're giving lots of details of what you see in the population compositions of each of them. And then in part B, compare the old age dependency ratio in Germany and the Philippines. And C, explain the economic, cultural, and health factors influencing the demographic compositions of Germany and the Philippines. This is a challenging one, but I know you can do it. All right, good luck, GeoScholars. I'll talk to you in a minute. Well, there you have it, AP Geo Scholars. That is my mini edition of my full Unit 2 review video on population and migration patterns and processes. Such an important unit in AP Human Geography, and I really hope that this was helpful to you in your studies. Go to the GOATcard.com and get my full review video for this important unit on population and migration patterns and processes. In my full video, I continue to review the concepts and skills I believe you need to know to do your best on the AP Human Geography exam and in the course. I review concepts and skills such as the demographic transition model and migration patterns and processes such as voluntary and involuntary migration, push and pull factors, refugees and internally displaced people, migration streams, Thomas Malthus and his theory on overpopulation, including positive and negative checks on population growth. At my website, you can also sign up for my weekly live review sessions where I will be going over each week key information related to each unit to help you do your best on the AP Human Geography exam and in the course. You can also enroll in my weekend review academies while space lasts to help you become the GOATs of AP Human Geography. Keep in mind that my GOATcard review system is designed as a helpful study resource to supplement your studies to help you maximize your performance on the exam and in the course. I highly encourage you to continue to review your notes from your classes, your readings, your independent studies, and your additional resources in addition to my system. Also, I want you to know I am not affiliated with the College Board or the Advanced Placement Program. They do not endorse my GOATcard system. This is my own invention based on my teaching and my research for nearly a decade into this amazing course and the exam. Email me at drsawyer@thegoatcard.com to give me feedback on my videos and my review system. Let me know if you like it and if there are any suggestions you have to improve it. And please let me know if I should make more of these GOATcard review videos to help you in your preparations for the exam. Congratulations on being students in the Advanced Placement Program. Good luck, GeoGoats!